Hello, everyone, and happy Easter to you all. Yes, I did say happy. Welcome to the season 3 finale of Uncanny Oddities. Tonight, we are going to, of course, be talking about Easter, or as I like to call it, Ishtar. Hello, James. Good to see you. Good to see you. Probably going to be a shorter episode tonight, just to go ahead and let you know. But I figured since it's Easter today, I figured I would go ahead and talk about Ishtar, the ancient version of Easter before it became modernized and so what's the right word? Commercialized, candy, all the candy and stuff. Try not to get in trouble. I still don't really understand how copyright works when you're like drinking soda on stream or eating candy or something like that. So try not to get us in trouble with that. But Easter candy. A lot of people these days we hide Easter eggs and we hunt them down and we're like, hey, it's candy. We don't really have to understand it. We get candy. What more do you need to understand? So I figured I would look a little bit deeper into this one because I think this is a really interesting one. And of course, James, it looks like you already know about this one, the Feast of Ishtar. So, it's going to be a little complicated with trying to keep this family friendly. But I'm going to try to keep this as family friendly as possible since, we like to do that around here. But Easter is a good day to throw parties of all sorts. Put it that way. So, first off, Inanna is the ancient Mesopotamian goddess of war, love, and sex. She is also associated with political power, divine law, and sensuality as well as procreation. Now, originally, she was worshipped in Sumer, but she was also known by the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians as Ishtar, which is, where we get Easter, Ishtar. You see how that, happens. Her primary title is the Queen of Heaven. So obviously, she is like, some sort of, wife to God or something like that. You know, basically the feminine version of God. Oh, don't worry, James. I'm gonna make it family friendly. I'm gonna make it family friendly. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Because every god needs a wife, right? She was the patron goddess of the Inanna temple at the city of Uruk, her early main religious center. In archaic Uruk, she was worshipped in three forms: morning Inanna, evening Inanna, and princely Inanna. The former two, evening and princely Inanna, reflecting the phases of her associated planet, Venus. So that's why they say men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That makes sense. Okay, so that makes a little more sense when, that saying when you start digging into Ishtar. So her most prominent symbols include the lion and the eight-pointed star. Her husband is the god Dumuzid, later known as Tammuz, and her sukal, or attendant, is the goddess Ninshubur, later conflated with the male deities Labrat. I'm not joking. Labrat. Labrat is how you spell that. I apologize. I'm sure I probably mispronounced that. So I apologize ahead of time or after the fact, however you want to word that. And Popsukal. Inanna was worshipped in Sumer as early. Oh, hold up. James says she may also have been Semiramis, the wife of Nimrod. Hey, what'd you call me? I ain't no Nimrod. You be nice. Oh, I apologize if that was offensive to anybody, but I I just think Nimrod is such a fun word. I really do. So, Inanna was worshipped in Sumer as early as the Uruk period, and her worship was relatively localized before the conquest of Sargon of Akkad. During the post Sargonic era, she became one of the most widely venerated deities in the Sumerian pantheon, with temples across Mesopotamia. Adoration of Inanna or Ishtar was continued by the East Semitic speaking peoples, such as the Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians, who succeeded and absorbed the Sumerians in the region. So then it gets into some, geographical stuff. So let's skip a little bit past all that and let's get into the actual worship aspect of Ishtar. Oh, Isis of Egypt. I did like Isis of Egypt. Let me, be specific there. Of Egypt, hint, hint, wink, wink. Anyways, um, getting into some of the worship aspects of Ishtar. Gwendolyn Leek, Leek, Leick. I apologize if I mispronounced your name if you happen to ever see this. Assumes that during the pre Sargonic era, the cult of Inanna was rather limited, though other experts argue that she was already the most prominent deity in Uruk and a number of other political centers in the Uruk period. She had temples in Nippur, Lagash, Shuruppak, Zabalam, and but her main cult center was the Eanna Temple in Uruk, whose name means House of Heaven. So it's kind of like a modern day, you know, biblical temple, like a church almost. Think of it like a church. So, in the old Babylonian period, her main cult centers were Uruk, Zabalam, Agade, and Leap. Her cult was also introduced from Uruk to Kish. During later times, while her cult in Uruk continued to flourish, Ishtar also became particularly worshipped in the upper Mesopotamian kingdom of Assyria, which is modern northern Iraq. Interesting. Interesting. Northeast Syria and southeast Turkey, especially in the cities of Nineveh, Assur, and Arbala, modern Erbil, Erbil, Erbil. During the reign of the Assyrian king Assurbanipal, 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 Ishtar rose to become the most important and widely venerated deity in the Assyrian pantheon, surpassing even the Assyrian national god Ashur. Votive objects found in her primary Assyrian temple indicate that she was a popular deity among women. And James says uh, she tried to kill Gilgamesh when he spurned her advances. I did not know that. I like Gilgamesh. Come on. I want to like Ishtar and Gilgamesh. Aw. That's lame. Oh, and James says the correct enunciation of the Assyrian king is Ashurbanipal. Ashurbanipal. Thank you, James. Now, individuals who practiced gender nonconformity were heavily involved in the cult of Inanna. During Sumerian times, a set of priests known as Gala or Gala worked in Inanna's temples, where they performed elegies and lamentations. Men who became Gala sometimes adopted female names, and their songs were composed in the Sumerian Emesal dialect, which in literary texts is normally reserved for the speech of female characters. And James already knows where this is headed, so I'm trying to think on my feet very quickly here. But some Sumerian proverbs seem to suggest that the Gala had a reputation for engaging in forbidden practices with men. During the Akkadian period, Kurgadu and Asinu were servants of Ishtar who dressed in female clothing and performed war dances in Ishtar's temples. Here's where we start getting into some of the more risque topics, and I'm trying to censor it on the fly. So, several Akkadian proverbs seem to suggest that they may also have had proclivities of the same general type of people being together in one area, during certain times of the day or night when they liked each other very much and they enjoyed one another's company. Now, Gwendolyn Like, an anthropologist known for her writings on Mesopotamia, has compared these individuals to the contemporary Indian Hijra. In one Akkadian hymn, Ishtar is described as transforming men into women. Now, that is very interesting how they talk about transforming men into women and vice versa, because that is something that is going on in modern times. Not to get, overly political with it, but it is something that is happening, and so it's interesting to me that it was happening all the way back then, too. I'll just leave it at that. Now, let's get into some of the iconography. Ishtar's most common symbol was the eight-pointed star, as we mentioned earlier. Though the exact number of points sometimes varies, six-pointed stars also occur frequently, but their symbolic meaning is unknown. The eight-pointed star, however, seems to have originally borne a general association with the heavens, but by the Old Babylonian period, circa 1830 to 1531 BCE, it had come to be specifically associated with the planet Venus, with which Ishtar was identified. Starting during this same period, the Star of Ishtar was normally enclosed within a circular disk. During later Babylonian times, slaves who worked in Ishtar's temples were sometimes branded with the seal of the eight-pointed star. So it was kind of like a cult. It sounds like a cult to me, to be quite honest with you. On boundary stones and cylinder seals, not that there's anything wrong with cults, some cults are very nice cults. The eight-pointed star is sometimes shown alongside the crescent moon, which was the symbol of Sin, Sumerian Nana, and the rayed solar disk, which was a symbol of Shamash, Sumerian Utu. So there are many different forms of Ishtar and many different names depending on where you are geographically. So, getting a little bit deeper into the Venus iconography, Inanna, or Ishtar, was associated with the planet Venus, which is named after her Roman equivalent. Several hymns praise Inanna in her role as the goddess or personification of the planet Venus. So, if Venus was a person, it would be Ishtar. That's basically what we're saying here. Ishtar, Venus, they are one and the same. Theology professor Jeffrey Cooley has argued that in many myths, Inanna's movements may correspond with the movements of Venus across the sky. In Inanna's descent to the underworld, um, Inanna, unlike any other deity, is able to descend into the netherworld and return to the heavens. Because I don't know how much you all know about Greek mythology, but I used to be a big fan of Greek mythology when I was younger. And even the deities themselves are typically not allowed to return once they descend into the netherworld. They're trapped there. Even someone like Zeus would be trapped in down there, if I remember correctly. But anyways, so the planet Venus appears to make a. Oh, hold up. James. Sorry. The chat is scrolling in a weird direction. James says, Sin, the god, is Allah. Okay. I've always thought Allah was just like a different geographical name for God, but I thought it was meant to represent the same being or entity, personally. But I'm still, I'm only like maybe a year and a half, 2 years into religious studies. And even that is just casual. It's not like, I'd spend all day every day, but beside the point, beside the point. The planet Venus appears to make a similar descent, setting in the west and then rising again in the east. An introductory hymn describes Inanna leaving the heavens and heading for Ker, what can be presumed to be the mountains, replicating the rising and setting of Inanna to the west. In Inanna and Shukaletuda, Shukalatuda is described as scanning the heavens in search of Inanna, possibly searching the eastern and western horizons. In the same myth, while searching for her attacker, Inanna herself makes several movements that correspond with the movements of Venus in the sky. So it's all very symbolic because basically what they're saying is when they wrote the books about Ishtar, they were just talking about Venus and they were using Ishtar as a stand in. They were personifying the planet of Venus, I think is what we're getting at here. And it goes into some of the more, adult stuff right there. Let's just say that. So let's get down to some of the pop culture stuff. Okay. Now, the only pop culture thing that I really have to mention here is, of course, as you probably know if you've been watching our show for a while now, you probably know by now, we all love American Gods around here. And I really enjoyed how they took the concept of old gods and the concept of new gods. And old gods are like, God, Allah, Zeus, Odin, stuff like that. The stuff you would read about in the Bibles and the different religious scriptures. And then the new gods, they have technology, celebrities, pop culture, stuff like this, television, stuff like that. So one of the old gods was Ishtar, and they had a whole scene, like a whole episode even, where they had a party with Ishtar. Um, I think I can say this, and it'll still be a family friendly show because everyone knows about this by now. For all the people out there who are curious about what kind of person Ishtar was, uh, well, Ishtar was having a Diddy party. Let's just say that. Ishtar was having a Diddy party. Probably even invented the Diddy party because Ishtar was all about fertility, and that is why we have to hunt the eggs because the eggs are representative of fertility because of how chickens are born and a lot of birds and stuff like that. And there you go. That's where that comes from. So the reason that we hunt Easter eggs, Ishtar, the reason that we hunt Easter eggs is because the eggs are actually designed to be symbols of fertility. And this would be a great day to have, let's say, an adult fun time party. So, that's the thing we're looking for there. And that is basically where Easter came from and where it started and where it is now. And then, we kind of commercialized it and took out all the, a bunch of the religious stuff and just made it kind of this thing about a bunny rabbit that hides eggs. And that's where we are now. So that's all I got for you tonight. Thank you for coming to hang out. It was good to see you, James. And this was the season finale. So we will be back in May. I believe we decided we would be back in May. So I will see you all then. Thank you again, James. Always loyal, always out in the chat for us. Thank you, and we will see you all next time. Oh, and as always, stay uncanny. And since we haven't said this in a while, always do your own research as well. Don't just take our word for it. We do our research, but do your own research too. All right. See you next time.